read 23 books last year, and here are my top 5 of 2025. Starting with number 5, we have Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. This is a dark academia book. It follows 2 students as they travel to hell to try and retrieve their professor's soul. Going into this, I was really intimidated by R.F. Kuang's writing, kind of the content of the book. A lot of people were putting together required readings before you entered into Katabasis. But I didn't do any of those readings, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I really enjoyed especially following Alice's story and her kind of development over time. What made her who she is today? How did society and being a woman in academia really shape her personality, her ambitions, and what she is striving for, why she's trying so hard to go to hell? And what really motivates her. So between all of the descriptions of hell and the different levels of it, which are really fun to kind of see that imagery, see how R.F. Kuang imagines it and describes it, what I really enjoyed most of all was following Alice and her journey, and Peter as well, of course, and how they grew closer together kind of throughout this book. So this was a really fun standalone for me, and this is number 5 of my 2025 books. And number 4, we have Days at the Morisaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagisawa, and this is my very first translated Japanese literature that I've picked up in 2025. And what I really loved most about this book was the slice of life pacing, and how it kind of follows a relatively normal person. There's no fantastical setting or anything. And I felt like I really related a lot to the main character, Takako's story. It opens the book with a shocking breakup, and in the way that it was delivered to her, and her whole life kind of flips on its head. And so her uncle that she hasn't talked to in many, many years offers her a position in his bookstore in this really, really famous bookseller location in Tokyo. And so that setting is the epicenter of the story, and where Takako kind of rediscovers herself, figures out a whole new routine for herself without this other person in her life anymore, and she builds back up her confidence. She meets a lot of interesting character both in the bookstore and in like the surrounding area. It was such a nice change of pace from the other books I was reading in 2025. I read mostly sci-fi and fantasy and contemporary romance. So this kind of slice of life book was such a nice breath of fresh air in the midst of all of that. I am looking forward to reading the second kind of, I guess it's a sequel, the second book in this. I think it's called More Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. So that's definitely on my 2026 TBR. In third place, we have Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. I actually read this relatively early in 2025, I think back in March, and honestly, I've been thinking about the duology ever since. The Shepherd King, the duology that Two Twisted Crowns is a part of, is the first piece of writing that I read from Rachel Gillig, and I really, really enjoyed the gothic setting that she put together in this duology. Her writing is so atmospheric. The magic system that she created in the duology is just so special. And I especially love the way that she wrapped up the sequel. And I felt like the second book was actually even stronger than the first one for me. Even though I rated both of these 5 stars, Two Twisted Crowns in particular, I think explored so much more of the emotional depth. You got a lot more of a certain character's backstory, the Nightmare's backstory, which was so interesting. It was a lot more, like I said, emotional than I was expecting. The story concluded so beautifully and so succinctly. I feel like you don't often see a lot of duologies in particular. I feel like you often see a lot of trilogies or longer, especially for a fantasy series. So having the story be so tight in just 2 books, wrapped up so neatly, was just really, really special to discover. So looking forward to reading more of Rachel Gillig's books in 2026. And number 2, this was a little bit of a surprise for me. This is the first book that I picked up from this author, and I don't think it'll be the last. It is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book kind of grabbed me just from the premise, the setting, anything about like the 80s or NASA or the space program, anything like that, you've already got me hooked. And so that is the backdrop of this entire story. It is the setting, but you really focus so much on the internal character dialogue, interpersonal relationships with the other characters in the NASA program, but you are following Joan as she applies to become and ultimately does become an astronaut in the NASA program. But I think the most beautiful part about this was actually seeing Joan develop over time, finding her voice in such a public position, especially one that, you know, is dominated by men, not women. So seeing her kind of discover her voice and explore what it means to be a woman in STEM in the 80s, and what it means for her life and those around her. This was such a beautiful story, and what I wanted so much was an epilogue to this. I just felt like the ending was so good, and I just wanted more. I wanted more time with these characters. I wanted more dialogue. I wanted to just keep following them. We follow them over many, many years, but I just kept wanting more. So that's why this is number 2 of my top books for 2025. And number 1 for me, it is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is book 2 in the original Red Rising trilogy. And my goodness, everything that I loved about Red Rising, which I also read in 2025, but I decided to only pick one book from the series because Red Rising would obviously be in my top 5. But everything that I loved from Red Rising, all of the fast-paced action, the kind of plot points rolling into the next plot points, it just was expanded and amplified. The stakes were higher in this one. Oh my goodness, I love this book so, so much. I think part of me was so sad to end it, so I took a really long pause about halfway through this book before I picked it back up again, which now I kind of regret. I wish I just read it all in one go, which I'm not going to make that mistake for the other books. I'm definitely going to read them a lot faster than I read Golden Sun. But man, if you enjoy kind of political intrigue and you love action-packed space battle scenes, you will love Red Rising. Please read it. It is so, so good. But I was not going in here expecting to cry. It made me cry. I was not going in here expecting many laughs. I laughed. I did go in here expecting to hate several characters, and hate them I did. But it exceeded all of my expectations, and I'm so looking forward to more emotional damage and devastation in the later books. My goodness, if this is how I feel in book 2, I'm very, very scared for when Red God eventually comes out, and for the other books before I even get to that point. This is probably top 3 series of all time already. I'm calling it in book 2. Anyways, yeah, so Morningstar, I've already started it. I finished this one today and I had to immediately start Morningstar. I could not just leave it off of the cliffhanger that this book ends on. So that one is already on my current read right now, but I'm really excited for 2026 and more books to be read. So what were your top books of 2025 and what are you excited to read in 2026? Yeah, happy reading!